It was supposed to be a normal morning. A quick visit to the city hall to submit our newborn's birth certificate. The paperwork had been sitting on the kitchen counter for days, waiting to be completed, and I was looking forward to finally having it done. It felt like one more step toward building a solid life for our little family. But as I entered the building, I was caught off guard. There, standing across the room, was my husband, Nolan. I paused, my eyes narrowing as I tried to make sense of the scene in front of me. Why is he here? He said he had to work today. I muttered to myself. Nolan had told me he wouldn't be able to come with me because of some urgent work obligations. Yet, here he was. And worse, he wasn't alone. I could hear his voice, muffled but unmistakable, coming from behind one of the counters. He was talking to someone, a young woman standing beside him. She looked familiar, but I couldn't quite place her. "Thank you for registering for the pregnancy program," the clerk said, handing over a small booklet to Nolan and the woman beside him. My heart skipped a beat as suspicion crept in, slowly winding its way through my chest like a snake tightening its grip. What was he doing here, and why was he with her? My mind raced with questions, each more painful than the last. Could he be having an affair? Was this why he had been distant lately? I found myself frozen in place, watching them from a distance. They were standing so close together, their body language comfortable and familiar. Nolan's voice was soft, and the woman smiled up at him in a way that made my stomach twist. I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears, drowning out everything else around me. I needed answers. I waited until they were finished, and then, with a sense of dread that weighed heavily on my chest, I approached Nolan, gently tapping his shoulder. He turned around, and for a moment I saw the color drain from his face. His eyes widened, and he stammered, "Amelia, what are you doing here?" I forced myself to smile, though my heart was pounding. "Funny, I should ask you the same thing," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You told me you had work today, yet here you are, signing up for a pregnancy program? Who is this?" I gestured toward the young woman beside him. She looked at me, her eyes flicking between Nolan and me, her smile faltering slightly. Nolan hesitated for a moment, then sighed, his demeanor shifting from shock to cold indifference. "Amelia, I've found someone else. This is Yolanda. We're having a baby," he said, his voice flat and emotionless. I felt my world collapse in that instant. Everything I thought I knew, everything we had built together, seemed to crumble around me. The man I had loved, the father of my child, was standing in front of me, tearing apart everything we had shared. My voice trembled as I spoke, barely able to get the words out. What about the baby I just had? The child we wanted so badly? Nolan scoffed, and I saw a flicker of disdain cross his face. "Yolanda is younger, and we didn't need all that fertility treatment with her," he said, each word cutting into me like a knife. "She's everything you couldn't be." Yolanda, standing beside him, smirked, her lips curling in a way that made me want to scream. "Sorry, but I'm just better for Nolan," she said, her voice dripping with arrogance. Tears threatened to spill, but I refused to let them see me break. I had come here to submit our son's birth certificate, to do something for my child. I wasn't about to fall apart in front of them. I reached into my bag and pulled out the divorce papers I had prepared as soon as I suspected something was wrong. I had hoped I wouldn't need them, but now I knew there was no going back. I handed them to Nolan, my hand steady. "Sign these," I said, my voice firm. "You're free to be with her." Nolan laughed, a cold, dismissive sound that echoed through the empty hallway of the city hall. "Fine by me," he said, taking the papers and scribbling his name quickly, without even a moment's hesitation. "I don't need you anyway." That night, I went back to my parents' house, cradling my newborn son in my arms. My heart felt heavy, but as soon as I stepped through the door, my family was there, their warmth enveloping me like a comforting blanket. My brother hugged me tightly, whispering, "You're better off without him, sis. We'll help you raise this little one." In the weeks that followed, I tried to adjust to my new reality. The nights were long and often sleepless, with my newborn waking frequently, needing me. But despite the exhaustion, I found solace in my son's tiny smiles, in the way his fingers wrapped around mine, in the love my family showed us both. Slowly, I found joy again. The pain Nolan had caused was still there, like a scar that hadn't quite healed, but it no longer defined me. Months passed, and I began to rebuild my life. I focused on my son, on giving him the love and care he needed. I took up small freelance projects, slowly gaining back the confidence that Nolan had stripped away from me over the years. My family was my support system, always there to help, always there to remind me that I was stronger than I knew. And with time, I began to believe it myself. I was done crying over Nolan. I was done letting his betrayal dictate my life. But one day, out of nowhere, he showed up at my parents' doorstep, his once confident demeanor now replaced by desperation. He looked thinner, his eyes hollow, as if the weight of his own choices had finally caught up with him. "Amelia, the company, it's falling apart," he pleaded, his voice cracking. "I need you to come back and help. Please." I stared at him, my heart hardened by everything he had put me through. The man standing in front of me was no longer the man I had once loved. He was a stranger who had hurt me in ways I was still trying to recover from. "You made it clear that you didn't need me, Nolan," I said, my voice calm. "You chose someone else. Now it's your mess to clean up." He looked at me, speechless, his mouth opening and closing as if he couldn't find the right words. I watched as the realization sank in. I wasn't coming back. I wasn't going to save him. Without another word, I closed the door in his face, the finality of it echoing through the hallway. It was over, truly over. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. Free from Nolan's condescending remarks, free from the betrayal, free to live life on my own terms. I no longer felt the weight of his expectations, the constant pressure to be someone I wasn't. I was finally free to be myself. Miles, the kind lawyer who had helped me through the divorce, had become more than just my attorney. He had become my friend, someone who listened without judgment, who supported me without expecting anything in return. Over time, our friendship blossomed into something more. Miles showed me that love didn't have to hurt, that it didn't have to come with conditions or ultimatums. He treated me with kindness and respect, and slowly I found myself falling for him. With my family, my son, and Miles by my side, I knew I had finally found the happiness that Nolan had tried to steal from me. I had a partner who valued me, a family that supported me, and a beautiful son who filled my days with laughter. And as for Nolan, he was left with nothing but regrets, and the realization that he had lost the best thing that ever happened to him. I often thought back to that day at the city hall, the moment when I had seen Nolan with Yolanda, the moment when my world had come crashing down. It had felt like the end of everything, but now I knew it was just the beginning. It was the moment that set me free, the moment that allowed me to find real happiness. And for that, I would always be grateful.